We begin this morning with President Donald Trump refusing to apologize for the racist posts on his social media of former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama. Last night on Air Force One, he said it wasn't his fault.
Mr. President, a number of Republicans are calling on you to apologize for that post. Is that something you're going to do?
No, I didn't make a mistake. I mean, I look at a lot of thousands of things, and I looked at the beginning of it. It was fine. They had that one post, and I guess it was a takeoff. By the way, a lot of people covered. If you look at where it came from, I guess it was a takeoff on The Lion King, and certainly it was a very strong post in terms of voter fraud. Nobody knew that was at the end. If they would have looked, they would have seen it, and probably they would have had the sense to take it down.
Take on The Lion King or not, the racist video on his social media account was posted late Thursday, the 5th day of Black History Month, and it depicts the Obamas as apes, a longtime racist trope that has deep historical roots. The post sparked backlash with Democratic and Republican lawmakers who quickly condemned it. After nearly 12 hours online, the White House deleted the post and placed the blame on a staff member. Joining us now, Simone Sanders Townsend, co-host of The Weeknight on MS Now, and Miles Taylor, former DHS Chief of Staff in the first Trump administration and founder of Defiance.org. Thank you both so much for joining us, especially Simone. You had a late night with the show last night. So let's dive right into this. From the scrubbing of an article honoring Jackie Robinson at the beginning of this administration to the whitewashing of Medgar Evers, there is a consistent commitment to racial revisionism from this administration.
I think that's
well, what's the human cost of this?
Look. First of all, there are no apes in The Lion King.
Let's be very clear.
This explanation.
Rafiki is a baboon.
Thank you. Yeah, and there's only one of him. He literally left his, but you know what? They need to watch the movie. They think we haven't seen it. But none of these explanations are sufficient from them about this video or the things that they're doing when it comes to the history of this country. But what this White House is trying to enact is frankly something. There's a movement across the country for this. There's a movement to revise history, to not teach all of our history, only teach the good parts, right? As though we can fully understand this country without teaching the full picture. So I think the human cost of this is it sends a signal, which is why, even though I do believe this is a distraction, it does need to be addressed. Yeah. Because if it's not addressed, it sends a signal to other leaders. It sends a signal to other organizations. It can send a signal to businesses. It can send a signal to young people that this is actually acceptable and okay. And the last point I'll make is you talked about the historical racist trope. There's a direct line from what the white Europeans cooked up as a justification for colonization in the 1700s to this assault on quote-unquote DEI that we have seen from particularly this administration. These are two sides of the exact same coin. But if you don't understand your history, right, which is why we have to know all of it, then you might struggle to understand. You might struggle to grasp that.
I think the thing that's really important for journalists to really be clear-eyed about, for the people in the media apparatus, for lawmakers, for regular everyday Americans, is just to accept that this is who Donald Trump is, right? Whether or not he himself pushed post, if a staffer actually did it, that staffer believed that they would not be in trouble if they posted this video depicting the Obamas as apes or gorillas or whatever they're supposed to be. I want to look at some of Trump's racist history that we have a full screen of. In 1975, consent decree over discriminatory rental practices. 1989, he called for the death penalty for the now exonerated Park Five. He pushed the Obama birtherism allegations starting in 2011. 2018, he called them S-hole countries at 7 a.m., so I'll keep it cute. At 2022, dinner with Nick Fuentes, a known racist, at Mar-a-Lago. Efforts to reframe U.S. history and slavery in 2025. He's been saying Somalians are garbage also since 2025. Simone, I want to stick with you on this because I feel like oftentimes, and we've talked about this in our group chat, is that people want the president to be different. They want, it reminds me of his whole first term, and it was like, this is the day he became president, right? And it's like, we have to actually accept who he is, because it tells us where we are as a country, what people are willing to accept in the Republican Party, what the Democratic Party should stand for, and what people who think that racism is bad should also stand for.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality of the situation is Donald Trump he's two things. I believe he's a master marketer, and he is wildly consistent. And he has, this wasn't new, so I'm not surprised that he did this. I'm disappointed. I'm exasperated. It's like it was the 5th day of Black History Month. Goodness, like, what are y'all doing? But also, what to me it says for all the Republicans, I'm thinking about all the Republicans I saw that rushed to say, I called the White House, I told them this wasn't okay, and then by the end of the evening it became, I know the president, he's not racist. Okay, well, I will just say the president has been consistently telling us who he is, and so if we accept that this is who he is, then that also means the people that have propped him up, that have excused the racism, the white supremacy, the xenophobia, the sexism, because they liked his economic policy, right? That those people have to reckon with the decisions that they themselves made. So I think it's easier to try to make this a one-off situation as opposed to looking at it holistically for some folks.
I think this is, Miles, where, when we're talking about history revisionism, I think Donald Trump, when back in 2020, he called the 1619 Project ideological poison. And then, though, you even look at this weekend, Bad Bunny's performance, right? And the right is trying to make his performance an anti-patriotic halftime show. That is where I was interested to see how many Republicans were actually going to stand up and speak out against this depiction of the Obamas. And there was actually a longer list of Republicans than we're used to. Where does this go? And is this part of something that is bigger moving forward?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned 2020. I will never forget, in the lead up to the election in 2020, one of the really absurd things Donald Trump said. He said in October that he was the greatest president for blacks since Abraham Lincoln.
That's a quote.
Now, what I think people didn't realize is he was also going to take us back to the time of Abraham Lincoln. He's given a time machine to black Americans to experience what blacks could experience back then by using this type of rhetoric, by putting that timeline we see up there of Donald Trump. The only thing that's left out of that timeline is 20 times as many incidents that happened in private with the man. And I will confess to having gone into the first Trump administration thinking he probably isn't a bigot in his heart of hearts. That's probably just a mean criticism of the man. He's clearly an amoral person, but he can't be an actual bigot, right? Until meetings with him, when you would hear things like this and worse. I'll give you an example, and I'll give you the receipts. March 2019, I'm sitting in the Oval Office with the president. He's mocking people of color that come across the border alone with their children and saying, and he goes into an accent, oh, please help me, I need help. Then he says, at least if they showed up with a husband, I could put him in the fields to pick corn or something. Donald Trump, President of the United States. This is how the man in private views people of color, immigrants, people he doesn't want in this country. He mocks them and he derides them. So to your question, Vaughn, about what this means for Republicans, there's a quiet bigotry of passing the buck. That quiet bigotry is saying, well, he did it, but not me, or the staffer did it, not me, and dun, 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 it's over, I don't have to say anything. After yesterday, I now understand, for the first time, why you could be a young black American looking at politics and saying, wait a second, all the people who didn't say anything or pretended this was a one-day story, they're in on this. They're in on this, and clearly they're supporting this guy. Even if those folks console themselves by saying, well, I condemned him and we can move on. No. If you're someone who saw the president do this and you don't see the people in his own party vocally and consistently condemning it, you just assume they're on board with it. That's real bad for the fabric of our country. That's real bad for civic unity. And again, that's a time machine back to the 1860s.
Why do they always want black people to move on?
It is really easy when you are not the victim or the target of a certain type of ism, whether it's racism, sexism, like, it is easy to be like, you know what, well, we talked about it, now let's move on. Well, I live this every day. Simone lives this every single day. It is actually impossible for us to move on from these kind of tropes, right? Because we get the exact same thing in our inboxes and online when we're just doing our current jobs. Yeah.
You know what some of these white Republican staffers do understand? I had lunch with one this week, and they do understand that the politics of this is bad for them. This person had said to me, totally happy with Trump, except this racist SHIT is bad. These are people who supported us. We shouldn't be doing this. He also pointed actually to other agencies that have put out equally as horrific and disturbing things. People who hold the keys to the social media accounts who are sitting around and tweeting white nationalist images, Sundays in America with depictions of just white people going to church. I mean, Miles, you at one point you knew the president. Do you personally believe he is racist, and have you seen him make racist comments firsthand?
Unequivocally, not just that episode in the Oval Office. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, the thing that hit me first in that administration, it's not like I was socially close with the man. I didn't need to be to know that he harbored these views. We would go sit in the Oval Office, and he would delineate the countries where he did not want to see any more people come into the United States. Countries like Somalia and Ethiopia and any country in Africa that didn't include white South Africaners, and say, okay, well, I guess he doesn't want people from those countries. But then the president would say, here are places where I want to turn on the spigots. I want people from Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden. I've traveled to the Nordic countries. I can tell you a little something about the Nordic countries and the prevailing race in the Nordic countries. A lot of white people, a lot of people with blonde hair. After you see that kind of side-by-side with the president making very clear to you, I need more white rich folks coming into this country. I need fewer black folks and people of color coming into this country. What other conclusion can you come to? In his heart of hearts, this is who he is. But you make a really good point, Jackie, that he is essentially cultivating a generation of young, creepy bigots. He is grooming young men in the Republican Party to be like he is, to be like Donald Trump, and to harbor these views. He's permitting it. It's why we see it in GOP group chats. It's why we see this lexicon, this discourse that favors bigotry making its way back into the Republican Party for the first time in a significant way in a very long time.
Because at the end of the day, for people who are saying, oh, it's just a picture, it's just a video, at the heart of this, it is Donald Trump and Stephen Miller getting to decide and feeling they are the only ones who gets to decide who is an American.
Can I just say, that's the point. Because, frankly, I don't care if Donald Trump is personally racist. I care if the President of the United States is taking his racist views and imbuing it into policy within the federal government. I care if the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, who, you know, has some white nationalist tendencies and seems to believe the white nationalist, white supremacist playbook, which is, I'm talking about Stephen Miller, if he is imbuing that into policy in the federal government. So that is the concern, I think, that people should have across the country about what this means for the policy. Whether he's personally racist or not, I feel like that's his business.
Well, Simone, I'm glad you said that, because what they've done since the first term is all those things he fantasized about. Let's shut off black and brown people coming into the country. Let's bring, you know, white rich people in from Europe. He didn't get to do in the first term. We rejected it. That was obviously immoral, unethical, maybe illegal. Now he is doing it. The most recent immigration policy from this administration turns off basically every country on the face of the globe except white people from South Africa. And people, by the way, there's a policy of this administration, if they speak out against European left-wing governments and they need a place to stay, well, we can bring in refugees from Europe who are attacked for criticizing the policies of their government.